Now I'm there. Good morning or good afternoon. I don't know.
It's still morning here, Tilly. Yes, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
How are you?
Yeah, fine, fine. So I'm not too late. I'm just coming back. We have elections in October, and I was helping to put the posters, and I said I have to go now.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much for attending today.
It's great.
It means a lot, and obviously to the mental health and youth and being a cause are something I know you're passionate about. So thank you so much.
With
Um,
pleasure.
I'm we'll be starting soon. Just to let you know, the idea is that we've got some sort of it's a session that we opened up to our members and young leaders. And they can come. I'm going to share a bit about our next steps as an organization. We have a key speaker of one of our young leaders, Daphne, who's going to be sharing their experiences of mental health and kind of what they hope for the future of youth mental health. And then we'll come to you for just some insights, maybe on what your insights are and what you've heard. And that's the what we're calling the key speaker and key listener. So we're trying to tip the balance. So we often have professionals and spokespeople as key speakers, but we want the young people to be key speakers and the politicians and people to be key listeners. And then after that, there'll be an open Q&A from whoever's in the room. We've got 20 people signed up.
Okay.
And the idea is that if with your permission, I'm going to chop and edit. I'm recording this at the moment, and I'm going to
Yes.
publish some of it on YouTube for those who are happy to be published, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Does
Okay.
that sound all right?
Very all right. Yes.
Brilliant. Okay. I'm going to we'll probably start a few minutes late just to give people time
Yes.
to jump in. But yeah, I'm going to share my screen at the start, so it's more of a web brief, but thank you again. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in Europe and the rest of the world. We will be starting momentarily. I will be doing the session from 25 to the hour, sorry, or 35 minutes past. And yeah, you'll have chances to ask questions and get engaged. Feel free to introduce yourself via the chat. Say hello to other people in the room, maybe where you're from, what you're excited to be here for today. And we'll be starting in a few minutes. Okay, we're going to make a start. Welcome everyone to this hour-long webinar, conference presentation, insert whatever you'd like to call it here today. But it's called Eurayouth Mental Health, Next Steps, Successes and Futures. We've got key listener MEP Tilly Metz here today, who will introduce themselves a bit more in a minute, as well as we're going to hear from one of our young leaders as a key speaker, Daphne, who will be introducing themselves in a moment before we crack on. You'll have time for Q&As later in the session. So if you do have any questions, feel free to write them, jot them down, or pop them in the chat now. And then when we come to the Q&A, I'll run back through the chat to see what we've got coming up. Feel free to engage in the chat, maybe your name, where you're from. Say a hello to those around Europe and beyond here. This session is being recorded today, but it'll be mostly presentations, and then I will be spotlighting the speakers, myself, Tilly and Daphne. So you won't be on camera at any point. We will be editing and publishing parts of it with the permission of us as speakers after the event today as well. Please bear in mind that today's session will touch on mental health, of course, being a mental health organization. So please bear that in mind. Take your time. If you need to dip out of the session for a moment, please do. I'll let you back in and look after yourselves. That's paramount today. And yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy hearing a bit about what we've done as an organization in the first year of our 3-year strategy. Then we get to hear from Daphne and sort of some insights from MEP Tilly Metz, who will then also be available for Q&A, as well as myself and Daphne towards the end. For those who don't know, my name is Nick Morgan. I'm the director and co-founder of Eurayouth Mental Health. We were set up in 2017 as a community interest company in the UK, but we work across the whole of Europe. We're set up as an e-company in Estonia, and we are working towards becoming a formal non-profit. We work with and for young people across Europe, and we act in order to raise up the voices of young people in order to promote mental health and support those impacted by mental ill health across Europe. So that's very short amount about me. I'm from a place called Swansea in South Wales, for those who know it, in the UK. I currently live in England, but I've lived in Netherlands for a bit. I lived in Croatia for a bit. So I've got around, and I love Europe as a continent, feel very European. And despite what other British news tells you, and so yeah, hopefully don't hold that against me. So that's a very small amount about me. What else? I'm a recent father. I've got an 8-month-year-old, and I've got a dog called Bobby, beautiful partner Helen, my rock, and I myself am also diagnosed with mental health illness. I have a diagnosis of clinical depression and general anxiety, which I talk about on a different platform. But that's a bit about me. I'd like to invite Tilly and Daphne to briefly introduce themselves, if that's all right. Daphne, are you okay to go first?
Sure. So hi everyone, my name is Daphne. I'm French, but I'm now living in Luxembourg. So I moved to Luxembourg about a year ago to work for an organization focused on dementia and Alzheimer's. I'm 25. I'm a young leader at Eurayouth for mental health. So I've participated in different activities with the organization. So for example, giving my opinion about ongoing research concerning young people with mental health. That's it for me.
Thank you, Daphne. Tilly, brief introduction.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm very happy and honored to be with you today. Indeed, those are two topics that are very close to my heart: mental health issues and also the future of the next generations. So I'm a member of the European Parliament. I'm from the Greens Party. I'm coming from Luxembourg, and I am in the Committee of Environment, Public Health, Food Safety, and also Transport, Tourism. tourism, agriculture, and now I am also vice chair of the new created committee health, so a subcommittee health. So I'm very happy that this was created and having the honor to be there vice chair. So my absolute priorities indeed are health issues in the European Parliament, but also animal welfare, food safety, and everything links to that, and also switching to more ecological transport and mobility. That's another of my three main priorities right now. But it's really the key points are always turning around health and animal welfare, which is of course very linked if we consider the issue of One Health, that it's all linked and we are part of a big ecosystem. Why I think mental health is especially important right now, it's we are coming out of this pandemic. Also in the COVID special report, we mentioned that the more young population suffered a lot from this situation, especially when they were isolated. Just one small anecdote, and then I finished there. I was talking to students, and we older ones used to always saying, "Oh, the nicest time of our life were when we were students and the freedom that you have." And then the student one was very clearly telling me, but for me, those were the most sad days now and period of my life, because I was so isolated, because it was during the COVID time where there was isolation. I never felt so isolated before. So in a small flat, you don't know anybody. And if there universities or schools where you are don't organize platforms or something to socialize, to get to know a little bit, a lot of young people felt indeed very isolated during this period. So it's really a key period to take the right lessons from all that. But maybe we come back to all that afterwards. But I'm very happy to be amongst you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tilly. Thank you very much for introductions, Tilly and Daphne. As mentioned, we will be coming back to them later. So I'm just going to give a presentation on the work that EuroYouth has done, who we are, if you don't know us entirely, and what we've hopefully going to be achieving in the future. We launched a 3-year strategy last year in May. So this is a very brief, there'll be a fuller report coming out about our actions and outputs over the last year, what the barriers have been, and what we're hoping to do in the future going forward. So if sit tight and feel free to think of questions you might want to ask me at the end of today's session. So these are just brief information about who we are. Established in 2017, only youth-focused Europe-wide mental health nonprofit, and we're run by passionate volunteers, myself included. Our vision is a Europe in which young people's voices raise up to be heard and acted on to ensure young people have happy and healthy futures. We act in order to raise up the voices of young people to promote mental health and support those impacted by mental ill health. As mentioned, the 3-year strategy was launched last year. Of tasks, activities, and outputs we're hoping to achieve. Some of them are going well, some of them have met barriers. So this is just some of our successes. We've been successful in 2 Horizon Europe bids, where we have been invited to be the leads on ensuring that young people's voices are part of their research work. One of these is called Youth Gems, which Daphne is actually a part of, where they're looking at the impact that genetics and the environment, and not just the green environment, but our environment more broadly, impacts young people's determinants around mental health, how it impacts their ability to learn and manage their mental health in a healthy way. And then another one that's literally just started called Bootstrap, which is looking at problematic internet use amongst young people and the impact that has on young people's mental health, which is really interesting because it's very, very, very broad in terms of internet use, because you could argue that everything has internet use these days. We carried out an internal review over the summer, which has gone really well, and we're about to launch our kind of new structure to the current volunteers and then start engaging more with our public. And lastly, just continue building our presence, really. We were part of World Health Organization Europe's creation of their mental health youth co-production work last year, We delivered workshops at the European Youth event. There was meant to be another E there. Earlier this year in Strasbourg at June, where we had the largest attendance of any workshop at the event, I found out recently. And we also delivered a presentation at the European Psychology Association's Congress in Paris earlier this year as well. So those are some really amazing things that we've been doing over the last year, and all of these things engage young people in using their lived experience to improve services, policy and work around mental health. One of our 3-year strategy targets was to engage with 600 young people over those 3 years, so aiming for around 200 a year. We're already on approximately 300. Which that figure is still being kind of calculated, but it is definitely around 300 mark, and that's direct engagement. So that's sort of doing some bits with them via social media, engaging people like Daphne, who are one of our young leaders, and also doing workshops and things at events like European Youth Event and with other organizations online. Some of our barriers. So some of the things we've hit, we hope to have become a charity by now in the UK, but we're still something called a community interest company. Actually becoming a charity opens up lots of financial benefits to us once that happens. Our chair, Julian Edbrook Charles, stepped down last year as he needed to slow down his workload. So we've recently been recruiting for a new chair, which I'll touch on in a minute. Finances, we still have no regular income or core funding as an organization. Because it's been difficult to get payments from some organizations as well. This blocks our ability to do what we want to do, and to engage in co-production opportunities with young people. And internal structures. We're a remote, virtual, European-wide organization, and volunteers that have been involved with us either for years or recently will tell you that we're still trying to learn and develop as we go, in order to make sure that we are kind of accessible and amenable to the people wanting to volunteer their time and their experience with us, are able to do so in a way that is easy and accessible as well. So we're trying to get through all of these things. So here's some photos, some fun photos from the successes over the last year. That photo on the left is a selfie from the European Youth Event, our second workshop group. And it's the EPA Congress in the middle here. We've got one of our young leaders, Bianca, and young leader Ines on the laptop, who sadly last minute wasn't able to join us in person, but was able to do so via a laptop, which we carried around a lot of the time, which was quite fun. And then on the far right, you've got a team of us who worked with the World Health Organization last year at an event in Athens. You've got some of our young leaders here and some of our youth facilitators. The future. So as mentioned, we're just recruiting, we're just about to interview for a chair. So hopefully by the end of September, we will have a chair of our board of trustees, which is something you need in order to then become a charity, which we will then do by the end of this calendar year. Finances are looking good. We're part of 2 more Horizon Europe applications, which if successful will add to our capacity. And they will be starting probably next year if it happens. And then but if we become a charity, we're also confident we'll try and be able to get some core funding next year to help with that. Clear pathways for volunteers. Our structure of the volunteering has been fragmented, is one way of saying it, as we're learning and trying to figure out how best to engage on an international virtual volunteer experience. And we believe we have now found something and a method and tools to use to provide a yearly kind of more structured approach to young people and other volunteers. There don't have to be young people to volunteer with us as an organization. And that similarly in place ensures that our new internal structure, so for staff, trustees and young leaders, that we have regular structures in place so that they can access and know where to go as and when they need to get the help that they need and how to get involved effectively. One thing we're changing is a bigger part of the structure, but I just wanted to share this new setup. As I mentioned at the start of this, my role has been for the last few years director or co-director for a while. We're going to be changing this up soon to a sort of chief executive model where we have various people in charge of various different positions. So you've got I'll become chief executive officer, and we've got my colleague Anna who's going to be chief operations officer. We then invented 2 new roles. We've got a chief youth officer. This is going to be one of our youth facilitators, TJ, or Christopher Olatiano Tejaro. He's a youth worker by trade. So this is for someone who's done youth work and done mental health work for a long period of time in a more holistic social setting, as opposed to clinical. And then a new role we're going to be recruiting for this autumn is to have a chief young leader. So a young person who's going to be sitting at that same level of kind of responsibility, decision-making as the rest of us, to work with us to ensure that all our work is youth-friendly and youth-focused and kind of hold us to account, really. Because I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for anyone else on that team. I'm not young anymore. And despite how much engagement I have with young people, I still need someone to remind me of things. That's it for this very short presentation on kind of what we've been doing, what the barriers are, what we're hoping for the future. So thank you for listening. There's contact details there. Buy us a coffee if you are enjoying the work we do. There's a QR code there. I'll put a link in the chat towards the end. Buy us a coffee. That basically means you can donate to us for as little as a coffee. The idea being these donations will go to helping us, pay for travel and accommodation for young people with lived mental health experiences, attend and be part of events and co-production opportunities across Europe, ensuring youth voices are heard and supported at these events properly as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen there, and I'm now going to hand over to Daphne, who's going to, or as a young leader, is going to share a bit of their experience and their story. Daphne, over to you.
Thank you, Nick. So as Nick has mentioned, I'm just going to be talking about my own personal story with mental health. So how it all started. I'll also talk about the different challenges that I experienced along the way, for example, diagnosis, but also getting better. And I'll also finish with a few views on what my hopes are for the future when it comes to young people in Europe and mental health. So starting from the very beginning, when I was thinking about what to talk about for this presentation, I realized that one of my earliest memories as a child was actually linked to anxiety. So I remember that each time I had to go on holiday without my mum, I would feel really anxious about that. And I had this weird association with like thinking of during the day when I see the sun, I'm not anxious, but as soon as the darkness and the sun goes down, arrives, then I'll be feeling sad because I'm not with my mum. So I would count down the days to when I would finally be able to see her and feel safe as a child. So there was always this kind of underlying kind of anxiety when it came to my personality that started quite early. But I was very fortunate to have, in many ways, a happy, privileged childhood. So I grew up with the support of family, friends, good teachers. But I did experience along the way some childhood stresses. I think it's called like that in psychology. So, for example, when I was 11, my father passed away very suddenly. Also, during the course of my school years, I had some experiences of issues with friends, bullying, or being excluded from a certain friend group. So I think these few things accumulated to the initial genes of being quite an anxious child, created a bit of a base of feeling a bit unsafe in the world and in myself. but I wasn't really aware that that was a thing. So I think this really points to the fact that there's a bit of a lack of education, especially, so this was about 15 years ago. I wasn't really aware that I was struggling with all of that. The moment that I did become aware is when I actually left the home cocoon to go to university. So this also kind of relates to what Tilly was saying about young people struggling a lot at university. I think that from my experience, even though there was issues already before university, it all came kind of crashing down when I started university. So why is that? So I think that in my case, it was because, well, suddenly I had no direct emotional support system, not much structure. I went to uni in the UK. You have like 5 hours a week that are mandatory, which doesn't help with routine. Everything was new. The language, because I was used to doing things in French, I had to suddenly do everything in English. That was stressful. People were new, and I started experiencing really a lot of anxiety. So around, for example, speaking up in class, around performance for studying, meeting new people. And the thing is, I really wasn't expecting this. I think we all, when we think of, the possibility to go studying, we think that's such a great opportunity. And I was really looking forward to it. I couldn't wait to study what I was interested in, to meet new people. So when I got there and I felt all this anxiety, my expectations were really not met. And I think that created a sort of, in addition to the stress that I was experiencing, it created a sort of traumatic experience. I don't want to use the word trauma with, big T, because it's not like one situation that happened, but the overall first year, because it was so unexpected, there was not much talk at that point about struggle at university when it came to mental health, then it made me really experience symptoms of trauma. So, for example, when I remember that first year, I experienced a lot of dissociation. So not being able to make decisions clearly because I was really stressed. I was putting pressure on myself to, be really social, even though I was very anxious, which was just creating a vicious cycle. And then after a few months, I also experienced some symptoms of depression. So finding it difficult to find joy in really simple things like watching a TV show, which was, usually would be an easy way for me to get access to joy. So at that point in year 1 of uni, I realized that something was wrong. So I was lucky enough to be able to get access to therapy. And a few sessions into the therapy, I was then diagnosed as having depression and anxiety, and particularly anxiety that was linked to specific situations like social anxiety, performance anxiety, but also some generalized anxiety. And after that diagnosis, I would say that a really long journey started when it came to managing my mental health, discovering techniques, ups, downs. Really, lots of things happened from that point up until now. So I'm just going to talk quickly about the main things that just really helped me cope after that initial moment of going to see a therapist. So one of the first things was to be able to do cognitive behavioral therapy. So this is an evidence-based treatment for anxiety disorders and depression. I think it's really, for me, it was really useful to just navigating scary, irrational thoughts. We hear a lot about this, but I think in that initial phase, when someone doesn't have much experience rationalizing their thoughts, therapy is really essential. I think it's really difficult to do self-CBT without any professional support in the beginning. So that was really key and helpful. Aside from that, I also, along the way, I was also lucky because this was the beginning of the mental health talk. So after, I think it was like year 2 or 3 of uni, suddenly there was much more mental health awareness, which I'm really grateful for. I was able to join a mental health group, like society at uni, which really helped with self-stigma. Other things that helped me were things like mind-body practices, meditation, yoga, implementing that in a regular way, making time for the things that I enjoy, hobbies, creativity. And also, I just want to talk about one situation, which was in the beginning of my journey. I was talking to a friend and I was telling her each time I go to class, like this particular class, I just feel so anxious and I am not able to participate, and I really don't know why. What can I, I'm trying to look for solutions to feel less stress, but I'm finding it difficult to navigate that. And the thing that she told me was, she was like, well, it's not your fault. You're just feeling anxious about that. And actually, when she told me it's not your fault, I just started crying because I was like, oh my God, that's so true. But I had never, it took me a really long time to process the fact that all of these feelings were just not my, like, it wasn't due to me that was doing something wrong. And I think for a long time I was trying to like control them, trying to find solutions. And I just saw it as my responsibility rather than something that was happening to me, maybe because of genetic and environmental factors. So this really showed me that like reminding ourselves that it's not our fault and having compassion is really key, and that sometimes we might think we're being kind to ourselves, but we're still thinking, well, maybe it is kind of my fault. We're still kind of feeling guilty about it because of how our society views individual responsibility, etc. So then in terms of the challenges, so I would say that one issue in my experience was like getting a clear, timely diagnosis. So in the beginning, when I went to see the therapist, I was told that I had low self-esteem, which was probably not false, but it's really not what I needed at that point. What I needed was like a clear diagnosis, like saying, okay, you have this anxiety disorder, that's why you're scared of this situation. So I think there is a need of really, rather than kind of talking with general terms, a need for awareness about specific conditions, because that can really help with understanding what's going on rather than seeing it as something that's automatically tied to your whole persona or identity. I also, in terms of challenges, I also want to talk about like how things can quickly accumulate for people with mental health problems. So for example, in my situation in 2018, so this was a few years after I experienced the mental health difficulties at uni, I caught a virus whilst I was on holiday, so just like a normal flu. But after that, I started experiencing chronic symptoms, so sore throat, flu-like problems, lots of fatigue. And this was then later diagnosed as a chronic health condition called MECFS, which is a bit similar to long COVID, if some people haven't heard of it. So this is just to show that mental health conditions really increase people's risk of experiencing other life adversities. So it could be related to health, socioeconomic difficulties, or even if you look at like people's diagnoses, it's rare to find someone with just one condition. So I think that awareness for me was a bit lacking, because when I went to see, for example, when I was seeing my therapist and talking about this health condition, in the beginning, she was kind of getting mixed up, and kind of, because I had this history of mental health struggles, seeing those new symptoms as maybe a sign of me not doing well mentally, even though it was a complete separate thing because it was a new physical health condition. And I think, again, education about knowing how to differentiate the different physical, mental health conditions. And so education also for psychologists, but also GPs, I think is really key, and can just facilitate getting a diagnosis in a timely matter for physical as well as mental health issues. So this also brings me to the last point. So now that I'm working, I'm doing pretty well in general in terms of my mental health. I still struggle with anxiety in particular, but there's so many things in my life that I do enjoy and where I find meaning. However, adapting to the workplace is difficult. So I often see myself as having, compared to other people, several barriers that, if you compare to a normal person healthy, just make functioning in the workplace more difficult. So for example, anxiety can affect my functioning on a daily basis when it comes to interactions or performance. My physical illness might mean that I have pain and less energy to perform my work tasks. So this doesn't mean that I can't do it. I think I'm proud of myself because I've really done a lot and had the courage to like kind of deal with an uncertain situation, because I wasn't sure if it was going to work out or not due to these barriers. But this shows that for people like me who are struggling with other mental health conditions, it's just extra challenging, and we need that recognition in the workplace as well. So this can be, for example, through disability rights. It could also be through an approach in a company that allows for more flexibility. I think for me, that's really one of the main things that changes, really helps me deal with the physical and the mental health issues. So I think a few things can really help those people who are experiencing more barriers to normal functioning. And we need to be aware of that for university and workplace settings. So I realized that I'm a bit over time, so I'm just going to stop now, and I'm happy to answer any questions towards the end.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Daphne, for sharing your story, your wonderful, wonderful story there with us. I feel very privileged to have heard that, and I've heard some of it before. And I think, you started about your anxiety at school or university, speaking in public. So for you to then be doing this is a huge jump in progression. As mentioned, we'll come to you'll be able to ask us all questions. Please do use the Q&A function or the chat. I'm checking both. If you think of questions while we're talking, to answer at the end. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Daphne. Tilly, I'd now like to pass on to you till 1:15, if that's possible. Very brief, I know. Just to share, maybe as a key listener, insights and reflections on what you've heard today, either from myself or Daphne, or generally about youth mental health.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. First of all, I want to thank you as an organization that you are there, because it's very important that you are the voice of the young people and that you are representing them. So I think that is very, very good that you exist. So thank you for that. And I hear it's not so easy to exist. You need, of course, financial support. You need to be known, etc. And so thank you for your braveness to having started there, because we need to hear from real persons concerned, from the youth themselves, what really are their demands, what really are their issues. It's not, as I always said, to speak about the people, but we need to speak with the people and also really listening to them. Yeah, what really touches me also is your testimonies. I mean, both of you were very openly speaking about mental health issues, and I think that is the first step, if I might say so, for healing. And if I speak about healing or getting better, I don't even speak about individuals, but also in general, a society. If we allow ourselves to speak about the issues and not to make it a taboo, because very often we still acknowledge that speaking about mental health issues remains for a lot of people a taboo topic. And because often it is not always rational, of course, to understand, and then people tend to give explanations and so on, and they are not in the vécu, in the situation of the person. So it's not about, they should not make 100 hypotheses. They should most of the time or more listen to the people themselves. And what really touches me also, and that's something I do very well understand, and also I can also feel, it's that when you have mental issues and you don't reply to the expectation of your parents, of your family, of your friends, then what comes more is that you feel guilty. And that's also something that Daphne said. So and I think it's very important to take away this feeling of guilt, but to really learn how can we say to the people and also to ourselves, but it's okay, and to accept the situation and to be able also then to speak about it. So very touched about your testimonies, and it's a lot of lessons we can take out of there also. And I must say myself, I mean, life is like a roller coaster, and sometimes you have very intense positive moments, and sometimes you have the feeling that the negative experience are accumulating. And the experience I made, you get the support or the consideration very often when you don't need it anymore. And the moments we really need to have recognition and support, sometimes it's difficult to find. And then when you are out of it, then you get this recognition. That's at least at the political level, that's the experience I made. Now, just let me say something positive is really that right now, at least we have at the European level, be it at the level of our special committee on health, but also at the level of the Commission of Mrs. von der Leyen, mental health is really becoming more and more topic, and that is very good, and especially the situation of young people and mental health. So there was indeed communication a few months ago from the commissioner that we need to have a comprehensive approach to mental health issues. And we also had a special committee on the lessons learned out of COVID, and there also mental health had a special place and was mentioned at different moments, really also to consider that we have to be aware that these mental health issues are not over now, and that a lot of suffering, I said it already before, was during the pandemic, that there was really a mental health issue that is not stopping just now, like in a second after the pandemic. So there is still suivi, how do you say, that needs to be done on this mental health issues that really were emphasized during the pandemic. So there are things moving, yes. It is less a taboo topic, yes. But on the other hand, what we need, I think, and I really want to hear also what's your position about that you have an easier access to mental health support services. I mean, it's very often linked to administrative burden, or you have to go through different ways to the doctors, etc. So what I really think we need, especially for young people, is really a barrier-free and a more easy access to mental health support in universities, even in the cities, in the middle of the cities, and so on, where you don't need to go to administrative burden or other specialists and expert before getting the right help. So really like low level and very easy access near to the people services that you could just go in and having somebody to talk to. And I think it's very important that we have also physical presence of those services where the young people are at concerts, at cafes, at bars, and that they are just there, and also more at schools, etc. So that the young people don't always have to find the way to really, that it is like a parcours du combattant, we say in French. So really like you have to fight to get the right support, but that those services come more and those experts come more where the young people really are. And also what I think is very important, and that's why I really appreciate also your organization, is the support from peers. I mean, that is very important. And that goes also through opening your doors and as Daphne, but also Nick, you did now, speaking about your experience, that already helps that people feel less alone and less guilty somehow, even if they should not feel guilty, but it's still something people have, especially if you don't understand what's going on in yourself. That's also, Daphne described it very well, that in the beginning she was not realizing what is going on. Why am I maybe different than other are having these feelings and this black eye ideas, if I might say it so. So it's important the services and the experts go there where the young people really are. That's something else we need to do. So there are now, as I said, first steps to acknowledge more and more mental health issues, and especially at young people. But for me, it's still not concrete enough. And also, as Nick was saying, if we really want to make something, we need, of course, resources, human resources, financial resources. So it does not just happen by nice words. Now we need also concrete steps and make it a priority also when we think about investment. And then the last sentence I want to say, that we need to offer also public support. We saw in the last years, and that's also of the lessons learned out of the COVID, that everything regarding public health in the last 20, 30 years was going into a direction of privatization and of looking at health as in a pure economic way. And we have to really invest more in good public services that are accessible for everyone, and especially for more vulnerable population. I'm thinking of refugees, etc. So that make it more accessible is a very important point to me. And also, as I said, making it invested by public health authorities and not leave it only to private organization. So I'm already over time, and I'm sorry for that.
Tilly, thank you very, very much for your words. I've just brought Daphne in, and can I highlight more than one person? Or is it just so we're open to Q&A now, but I'm gonna kick the Q&A off by asking Daphne if she'd be interested in asking a question you posed, Tilly, about, you know, how might we provide better access to support for young people? How could that be better? How can we offer better access to young people for support with their mental health outside of the clinical and administrative settings, as you say? Daphne?
Well, I think we did already maybe a bit touch on this, and Tilly also mentioned that the importance of, in addition to being able to seek like clinical support through the health system, to just have groups that are available. So it might be like online peer support groups. I think that is very important. So we're seeing this more and more in universities. But I would say that when it comes to the workplace, maybe also because of issues linked to stigma and discrimination, there is a bit less like options, at least in my experience. So I would say like, I mean, I know that in lots of companies, there's like the first aid mental health person that you can go talk to, but I see having like support groups available, especially in large companies where you might have a substantial amount of people struggling in some way. I see that as really helpful. A second point, and this was also a bit mentioned by Tilly, was linked to empowering people with mental health problems. I think because of the issues of, being ashamed or feeling like if you have a mental health condition, you're less able to contribute positively to society. I think in addition to support, we also need to find ways for young people with mental health difficulties to use their experience for the benefit of society. And I think in this case, initiatives like advisory groups for research projects, or groups that advise national policy on health and mental health. I think all of this is obviously important because we need to hear people's concerns, but also just useful for providing a nice emotional empowerment and support to those struggling. So those are available right now. I think there's more and more emphasis on involvement and into policy and research. But I think that lots of people are not aware of these opportunities unless you're kind of already linked to some NGO or some group. I think it's quite difficult to know how to get access to that or even that it's a thing. So I would say more like spreading more information about that and really showing that it's accessible, like even if you don't have experience, like actually your personal experience is the expertise.
Brilliant, Daphne. Thank you very much. We've got a question from the audience. Thank you, Maddie. A nod to Maddie, who I do know. Nice to see you with us, Maddie. I imagine this is to all of us. So it's an open question to all of us, to anyone to answer. To what extent do you think the growing number of young people struggling with their mental health reflects problems in society, such as climate change, poverty, rather than a simple illness? And I mean, so I touched on one of our research projects that were involved in Youth Gems, is looking a lot around that sort of that in how the environment is responsible for our well-being. And there's a thing called healthy cities. I say a thing because I don't know the exact terminology or research about it, but there are healthy cities. The idea of being cities that have more green and things like that in them tend to have a slightly happier population. You can have a look at that on the internet. Daphne, Tilly, would either of you like to give a response to that question?
I can start if you want, Daphne, if that's okay. Yes, that's a very good point, and thank you, Maddie, for mentioning it. Indeed, I think that's something we have to take very, very serious. That the Fridays for Future have showed it, but also all this last generation movement, etc. Young people are afraid of the future, are worried about the future, but more and more, and they are completely right, they are also worried and concerned by the behavior of the politician, of the adults that should guarantee a future for the next generation, and they are not reacting quick enough. They are so I do perfectly understand that people have serious issues and serious fears about their future because they see that the politicians and the responsible authorities are not reacting quick enough. And yes, so completely right. And also the situation, not knowing about their future, their job, poverty issues, not knowing if you are students, how you can allow to pay for your studies and to pay for having a place to live in. So that is real realities, and there we have to come with concrete solution and taking those fears serious, and they are completable, right. So it's something we need to tackle more and more, and especially the climate biodiversity loss, where the young people are really questioning, but what are you doing? What are you waiting? As Greta Thunberg said, our house is burning and we are not reacting. So yes, it's a lot of those elements that are really boosting, of course, mental health issue. I couldn't agree more, and people are very right, and they should shake us much more than they do. And I'm happy that the young generation are putting pressure in order to say, please react. We are not going well. I know also, as I said, animal welfare is one of my issues, and I know also a lot of young people that are suffering from the fact knowing how we treat animals. So that's also something we have to consider. Yes, Daphne, I'll let you.
Yeah, I agree with all those points, and I think, I mean, there's been lots of research that it definitely shows that climate change, poverty, inequality just has a huge impact on people's mental health and general well-being. So this clearly shows that these issues are interconnected in many ways, and that we should see mental health as not just a health or individual issue, but really linked to socioeconomic and environmental variables. And I think there's also often a bit of separation when it comes to training on this issue. So lots of psychologists, in my experience, or therapists, or people working in the healthcare field really stick to a more disease-oriented model, which can be very helpful in many ways. But I think we also need more interdisciplinary approaches to treatment and support for mental health. And there's like emerging fields linked to eco-psychology that's really looking at every single impact climate change might have on mental health, or how a society is structured, how that impacts people's well-being. But a lot of psychologists might not even be aware of this field. So I think there really needs to be like a bridge between these disciplines in order to address this really important issue.
Thank you both for your response. I want to share someone else has put something in the chat, Bianca. I think it's highly correlated, smiley face. Main reason being, for example, that we're the generation that will need to cope with these and the consequences in the future. Further, most of the time, young people are not represented in the political arena, so that makes young people feel even more powerless. Thank you, Bianca. It's I think I agree. I think mental health is a holistic thing, and I think, like as Daphne mentioned, old practices have a place to a degree, but remember that, you know, practice and treatments and clinical approaches that were created in the 1960s were a very different, or 1970s were a very different world to the world that we live in now. And we need to keep adapting and evolving to do that. But for me, as a youth worker, and I champion the practice of youth work, is around having those holistic spaces and holistic people who have a broad sense of training that looks at things not just about the mental health clinical components, but their environment, their home life, financial life. It all plays in, doesn't it? What we got 3 minutes left. I'm going to ask, thank you everyone for your insights. I'm going to ask Tilly, can I ask you a personal question maybe about how do you look after your mental health, Tilly?
Yes, I think it's very important that you have people around you that believe in you. That must not be 100, but close friends or some family members, or that you have people that believe in you. I think it's important when, as I said, life is a roller coaster. And on the other hand, and that's really my young team. I have quite a young team around me, mainly young ladies, and also they help me, I must say, to find the work-life balance. We speak a lot about work-life balance. I mean, and that those are not just words. And they help me that with their need that they were able to say, because our generation was more like, oh, you have to work all the time and you have to show you a lot of pressure. And they are speaking much clearly about work-life balance. And that really helped me also, I must say honestly, not to feel guilty when I don't work, because I always have in my mind, you have to do this, you have to do that. And then I say, no, if you really want to give something to society, you need also time for yourself to resource yourself. Otherwise, it's like a battery. If you only give the battery at one moment is empty, you need to recharge it also. So I must say, surround you with people that believe in you and that are really not saying work-life balance is important, but also that live that. I think it's important. Otherwise, I'm not credible neither. If I speak, oh, it's important work-life balance, and I never take time to resource, and then my team told me also they feel guilty then also if they are not working. So it really helped me to speak about what does that really mean, work-life balance, and as I said, to have positive people around you and to really try at one moment to disconnect without feeling guilty.
Tilly, thank you very much for sharing that. It makes a lot of sense. I was chuckling, and because we had a session just before this for young people about how to look after your friend's mental health, because You've Got a Friend in Me, where we talked about we called the same thing about battery, but as a gas tank. You know, when it runs out, if you keep giving and keep giving, you'll eventually run out and yourself. So you need to give to yourself sometimes as well. Daphne, before we finish, would you like to share any pearls of wisdom? How do you look after your mental health these days? You touched on it earlier, but
yeah, I would say that one thing that maybe I haven't really mentioned that much is like how dealing with issues, like how I relate my mental health struggles to my identity, and I think it's about finding a balance. So I think trying to push away the mental health difficulties from who you are when you're feeling good is dangerous, because then when it creeps back up, then it's like extra challenging to deal with that. So I think accepting, yeah, these struggles are part of me is really important, even in the moments where things are good, because as Tilly said, life is a roller coaster, so there will be suffering and difficulties in general. And yeah.
Thank you, Daphne. We are running out of time. I can see that Irene has got her hand up. So Irene, if you've got a last question to ask, and then we'll wrap it up. And if Tilly and Daphne, you're all right to stay on for 5 minutes more or so.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. You're amazing, I think. And I just wanted to thank you, Daphne, for her sharing. And also wanted to say how much important also it's the community aspect, because I'm studying psychology of community. And so I really think that a lot of people have different stories, but share like same emotions, same core emotions, and we can help one another if we stay together. And so I want to bring, like in my life, I would like to bring awareness of also the community aspects, because we have to reconnect to each other to be better. And so what was Tilly saying before, you know, she was looking for people that support her in her daily life. And I think this is really important and really great. And that's why, like, I love associations, because sometimes you cannot reach out to your parents or to your teacher or some friends. And like in my life, I really have an amazing experience with sharing my life with association and youth workers. So I really thank you for your work, because I really love it, actually. And thank you for this hour.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for attending and for those very, very kind words. It's a funny thing, isn't it? You talk about community and your local community. Whenever I tell anyone I work in mental health, and I'm talking about anyone, a stranger on the street, a friend I've been friends with for years, they'll suddenly tell me some form of mental health struggle or experience difficulty that they've had. I think everyone's got one of those stories, aren't they? And it just takes one person to open up the can to allow others to feel comfortable to do so. So thank you, everyone. On that note, we are gonna call it a day here. I'm gonna edit this and put some of it on our YouTube page. I've put some links in the chat as well. There's some helplines and things there if anything has kind of felt a bit sensitive today. There's our donation page. You can donate as little as a cup of coffee for us. And of course, our website. If you'd like to get involved, do get in touch with us. And we're always looking for volunteers. And yeah, I just want to say a huge thank you for joining us on a Sunday morning, especially yourself, Tilly. Thank you so much. Daphne, thank you so much for giving up your Sundays. Tilly will be in touch to maybe do some more work in the future. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Daphne, thank you again. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for inviting. Bye.